Hi, welcome to motorcyclepairs.com. Today we're going to change my bike, this Santa Cruz Blur. We're going to swap this frame for the long travel frame and show you how simple it is to swap one frame for another frame when all the parts are pretty much the same size and compatible. Thanks for watching. Here we go.
Hi there. Yep, I just speeded up the film bit to speed up the process because this did take me a couple of hours. So we'll just quickly take both wheels off and use the little quick link pliers to take the quick link out of the chain, just to split that, feed it through the derailleur and hang that up for later. Then we just start on the getting ready to take the handlebars off. So we take the rear brake caliper off. This is I've got a set of Hope Mono Mini rear brake. It's a 180 disc, and then just cutting off the cable ties that hold the hydraulic hose on. Just a few of those. Just a little bit fiddly. And just unwinding those, and then taking off, disconnecting the rear derailleur inner cable, just taking the little crimp off the end, feeding the inner cable through so I can reuse that, and doing the same with the front derailleur. Just take the inner cable off, take the little crimp off the end. Fairly straightforward. And just feed through the inner cable and some of the outer cable parts in case I can use them again. Now I can take the forks out, just undo the stem, the two clamping bolts and the top bolt for the headset. Just undo that and then the forks will drop out. There we go. Simple as that. Now just trying to keep the old headset intact because these are both got different headsets, these frames already in it. I don't need to swap the headset. So now I just need to swap the crown race which is on the fork. So just using a screwdriver, just gently tap it down, use a screwdriver and a little rubber hammer. Just gently tap it down evenly on both sides and gently prise it out. Should come away fairly easily. Just a little bit fiddly. There we go, and then just keeping it with the old frame, just zip tie that back together with the old one so I don't lose it. Now just having a look at the new frame, checking out the headset and taking the bottom bits out so I can attach that to the forks. Just need to put the crown race on now, so just put it back on and then just gently tap it into place. I think I'm just going to look for a bit of extra leverage on this. Yeah, so we just tap it down gently, evenly, all the way around with the screwdriver and the rubber hammer. I think I'm just looking for a tube which would do it a little bit more uniformly, which I find somewhere. There we go. Just put the tube over it and just tap it down, and that seats it nice and evenly. And got the tube a little bit stuck, so just gently prising that off, and that came off. And then tapping it down a little bit more just to make sure it's 100% flush with the top of the fork. And just having a look at the new headset and just giving it a little clean up, taking the bottom bearing race out. I think this is an FSA Orbit one, and then just greasing the inner bits. Even though it's a sealed bearing, I still put a bit of grease either side of the actual bearing race itself. and putting the lower bearings onto the crown race on the fork. A little bit of grease around that just helps to keep the water and the grit out of it and make it a little bit smoother than it is already. Then we get ready to stick it on the frame. Just put a little bit of carpet on the floor so I don't drag the rear brake caliper along and scratch it too much on the concrete. Just thread that in, stick the stem on just to hold it in place. Then we just pull it all together, stick the spacers on and put the stem on and the headset top cap and do that up. So yeah, as you do that up, it pulls all the bearings together. The top bolt of the headset. Just try and line it up roughly straight, and then pinch the two stem bolts together. So there we are. The forks are all in. No need to change anything on the handlebars or the front disc brake. Now just winding in the excess on the cable. Trying to feed through the cables onto it. Just feed it in the ones for the gears, the front and rear derailleurs. Where possible, I'm trying to reuse the cable just so that I don't have to go through stretching a new cable. These frames being very similar, there's not a lot of difference in the geometry of it. The only difference really is that one is the old one is 105mm rear travel, the new one's 140mm rear travel, so a slightly different geometry of the linkages, but they're both the same 19.5" size, which is large for these. I think I'm just looking around for a bit of outer cable just to get a slightly longer one to fit for the front derailleur. And here we go, nice silver braided one I've got that fits on. Just feed that in. Looking for some other tools to undo the top of the rear shock, just because the clearance is a bit tight here and I wanted to get the rear hydraulic hose inside of the little linkage just to make it a bit neater so it doesn't stick out and it's less likely to catch on things. So just have to undo the top of the rear shock just to drop it down a bit so I can get the rear hydraulic cable through it. And there we go, you can see I just pulled it down a little bit. Now I can sort the cables out. I think it's just the little spacers were stuck on the frame because they've been in there for ages. Just putting it all back together now. I think it's just a 5 or 6mm bolt that goes through either side, obviously specific for the frame, and just do that up tight. Then sorting out the outer cables for the gear, make sure you're leaving enough slack for it to go up and down at the rear end. Just cutting it exactly the right length, put a little end cap on the cable. So you've got to have a little bit of a curve to it just to take into account the suspension movement. These little fiddly little details which make a big difference to your riding the gear cables work properly and they're nice and direct, not too long and not too short. There we are, fit that one on, and then just putting now the little rear bit on for the rear mech. I'm just taking this one off here. This is the XT Shadow one I've got on my bike. Just swapping that over. It's quite simple, just one bolt. Undo it and then do it up on the new one. I'm just putting the rear brake caliper on. It's quite an old frame, so it's got the IS bolt holes on it, not the post mount like all the new ones do. And then just putting the little plastic clips under the hose guide bits on the rear frame. Now just taking the cranks off. I've got Shimano XT Hollowtech cranks. Just undo the little 2 pinch bolts on the left crank. That loosens it off, and then the little plastic lock ring that goes in it. Just undoing that. So once that's off, there we go. You just wiggle the little left arm off. Tap the other side to get it through with a little rubber hammer. And give it a quick clean with a toothbrush just to see which all the markings are, to make sure it moves properly. Make sure you turn it the right way, and then just undo it. The 2 bottom bracket cups. So once you've loosened them off, you just easily undo it by hand. And then just take the front mech off. I think this is an old LX one I've got. And then just roughly positioning it on the new frame. And then we're just cleaning up the new bottom bracket shell. Just a little bit of grease all the way around it, just to make it a nice tight smooth fit. And then just cleaning up the bottom bracket cups, screw them in. Quite straightforward. A little bit of extra grease just to make sure it seats properly. Just get the spanner and do it up nice and tight. Just brace the frame with your other arm to make sure you get it really tight, so when it's come loose. And same with the other side. Yeah, just brace it against the frame. And just stick the crank back on, just feed it through the hole, little tap to get it all the way in. Put left arm on all the splines, put a little plastic lock ring in and do that up tight just to pull it all together. And then just do up the 2 pinch bolts, and there you go, the cranks are on. There we go. Now just taking off the chainstay guard, just a little neoprene one I've got, just to protect the rear of the frame. Now just putting the wheels in, front and back. These wheels I've got are American Classic ones, which are pretty much the lightest alloy ones you can get without spending a fortune, which makes the bike pretty light. Now just swapping the seat. Luckily these are the same size. This is 30.9 inner size for the frame, but I've got a 27.2 carbon post, so I've got a shim in it. Just taking the seat clamp off now, swapping that over, then pushing the shim out. A little bit of a tap to get it out. There we go. A little bit of clean up. We put some grease in between the shim and the frame just to seal it in nicely. But there's no grease between the shim and the carbon post. Just do that up. I did mark it before on the old frame just to get it roughly the same height as they should be. Around about the same height, being the same frame size. I just feed the chain through around the derailleur jockey wheels. And just put the little quick link back together. And that's it. Now just line up the front neck, just to make sure it's the right height and the right angle. Just a couple of mil gap between the top of it and the top ring. And do up the cable. And then we're almost there. So this is the old frame, all taken apart now. Everything's on the new frame, just needs a bit of fine tuning. Just make sure the wheels in place. I think my video is going to run out shortly, so this is just a bit of fine tuning on the gears to get it all set up properly, and that's it. Simple as that. Thanks for watching. See you next time for another one of my great videos. With this little fine tuning, should all be ready to ride in a few minutes.